Oh, okay, we exist now. Need to form
We
that.
exist.
We are
exist.
But we are now in the right place. Sorry about that, everyone. Hey guys, welcome to the Fan Battle Cast, episode 5.
Why is the timer going?
That was a timer for me to get my shit together, and if I did not, then the stream would implode.
It's cropped a little weird. There we go.
There you go. There you go. Now it's not new. There you go. I'm a professional streamer. Yeah, because
I could
have
tell.
done 5 streams, thus I am professional.
Hey, 5 more than I've done. Take.
I'm a little out of sorts today, everyone. I apologize, but welcome to the 5th episode of the Fan Battle Cast. Today we have a very special episode. We have Donkey Kong versus Crash Bandicoot. And why is that very special? Because I'm hoping it's the simplest one so far, because we're starting to make an unhealthy trend.
Oh, don't worry. Nothing complicated about this one.
Totally.
We have a nice little smattering of people today, a lot of new faces for this channel. We have Smelt.
Hello.
We have Jobber.
Yo.
And we have Kino.
Hello.
Making up our jury for today. And debating, we have Mario Master debating for Crash Bandicoot. And Paul debating for Donkey Kong, as you can tell by his shirt.
There's been a bit of a mix.
Congratulations, Mario Master. You're now debating the character you didn't research.
Oh, no.
Is Paul not? Wait, is Paul not? Why are you?
I don't have a Crash shirt.
Yeah, this is false advertising.
He's secretly also debating for DK.
Thank you for...
Sure. He just won. We're both debating him.
Alright. Thank you for attempting to laugh at my jokes that are not funny. So I think we don't got anything to posturize on. We'll just jump right into the DK versus Crash debate. Who would like to go first?
Mario Master, it's your pitch. I think you should go first.
All right. Okay. I'm here right now, and I'm going to be debating for Donkey Kong.
Yes.
So, why do I think he wins? He outstats him both all in strength, speed, durability. He has much more useful items in his inventory, and he also is able to handle much more powerful beings. And because Crash really doesn't have many ways to really harm Donkey Kong. And
all right.
Okay. Pretty solid start.
We get less than 30 seconds. We like to see it. Very concise. You know, winners don't need to belabor the points.
Yeah.
All right. Paul, you are up. Whenever you start talking, your 60 seconds will start.
All right, so I believe that Cash Banuka can win this because while he is slower, he is slightly stronger than DK in physical stats. He has a wider arsenal of abilities that can at least delay Donkey Kong long enough for Crash to get an opening. He is much more strategically smart when it comes to battling opponents, especially opponents that are both more powerful and especially much smarter than him. And he is far more prepared for aerial combat. I think that Crash Bandicoot, in the end, can distract DK long enough to wail on him with enough weapons and variety to eventually bring the ape down.
Slightly more time, 40 seconds, but still impressively brief. All right. So, this is a much more simple matchup than I'm used to. I don't even know what questions to ask, really.
I think after all the last ones where the cosmology just went hard, this is such a nice...
I'm a little brain rotted. I apologize.
Yeah, literally 3 out of 4 of the prior episodes had to get into complex cosmology. It was something else, all right.
Yeah.
Well, for this cast, we're banana rotted, so don't worry about it.
Banana rotted.
Banana and Wampa rotted.
So I guess the question is can these guys do anything to each other besides just physically brawling, or is it just whoever's the better brawler is gonna win?
I definitely
Kind of.
Yeah, I definitely feel while both are very good at physical combat, both have a lot of weapons at their disposal. So, here I'll let you say it first, Paul, with Crash's weapons.
All right, thank you. So, while yes, these two come down to a lot of bare knuckle brawling with each other, there is still a lot of different weapons they can utilize that go a long way for this battle. And Crash, I think, has a much wider arsenal thanks to the masks throughout the series and especially all his vehicles. Crash has used a copious amount of vehicles throughout the series, including a motorcycle, a Jeep, riding on the back of a polar bear, Coco, of course, riding on the back of a Tiger Pura, and Crash has things like his jetpack that he's often used, and he's used the space motorcycle in the GBA games. And in almost all of these vehicles, he has some form of his fruit bazooka. And while a Wumpa fruit might not seem deadly at first, a single Wumpa fruit has enough force when fired to smash through an entire wooden crate. Doesn't do a lot of damage, but it once hurt his brother Crunch Bandicoot in Wrath of Cortex. And Crunch is twice the size of Crash and was built to be superior to him. Crash Bandicoot also has a few different mechs at his disposal. We, of course, have the alien power loader from Wrath of Cortex, but that thing is a fucking twig. So rather, we should see Crash use the Mecha Bandicoot from Crash to Insanity. While not heavily stronger, that thing is much, much bigger. I'd say about twice the size of a power loader, and he used it to defeat the evil twins, a pair of birds that Cortex had a pet that were significantly smarter than Crash or Cortex. It's interesting that while Crash is known for being such a clueless dummy, he is remarkably skilled when it comes to fighting and improvising skills. He has defeated multiple opponents that are much smarter than him, including Entropy, his sister Coco when she was under Entrance's powers, Cortex multiple times, and both Entropies in Crash Bandicoot 4. So while, of course, DK is no idiot, I think Crash is much more tactical when it comes to a straight-on fight, whereas DK will go for the simple matter of hit it until it stops hitting you.
Okay.
Does DK have any weaknesses to exploit? Because I feel like you can only be so intelligent to a certain point against certain enemies.
Well, not quite. Both of them actually show a lot of resistance to various elemental powers. DK has shown resistance to electricity. They are both remarkably resistant to ice. In Wrath of Cortex, the water mask, Kapuna Wa, I think I'm saying that wrong, but the Arlie Ernie mask, I just refer to them by their voice actors, froze Crash in the final battle with using ice balls, and Crash broke out of it on his own in less than 2 seconds. So ice is not really a factor for either character, and as we've seen multiple times, they are both immune to hypnosis. So neither of them could use that as an option against each other. DK does not have a lot of exploitable weaknesses. I just think Crash can wail on him harder in the end. If you could pull up for me slide 3 from the slides I gave you. I did not number mine.
Yes.
Let's see these slides.
So this was from a short for Crash Bandicoot Crash of the Titans, which of course was the reboot series that was awful, but still gave Crash some very impressive feats. This was from a short where we introduced something called the Make Anotherinator, which was an invention by Cortex that Crash accidentally used. And this is the best screenshot I could get. It created 19 clones of Crash at that time, and they could act separately from each other and should be just as powerful as him. And each of them just happened to be multicolored.
Yo,
This is
also.
I like the
So
jumping
he-
argument.
so he could basically pull a Segata in this moment of just
Wait a minute. Hold on. It's called the Make Another Inator. Like, who made this device? Dr. Doofenshmirtz? What is this?
I was gonna say, for some reason, this is a Cortex invention.
Guitar.
Okay, to be fair, Deuce would give it a much more clever name. Because he created a cloning device once. He used it just to clone his head, but he has created one. He'd use a more creative name. My
Bandicoot
make
you
more
play
than one of me a
Nator.
Nator. Might make more than one of me a Nator. But yes, it created a total of 19 clones of Crash in this short, and each of them should be just as powerful as each other. There was no evidence that they were weaker. So DK could be fighting the main Crash and then suddenly turn around and he's surrounded by 19 Skittle-colored Crashes.
Okay.
And because I think Crash and DK's stats are so close to each other, then that means DK's getting hit at maximum by 19 times Crash's strongest striking feat. And I think that would be enough to at least seriously hurt him.
It is hard to fight 20 people at once. I can testify
Yeah.
to this.
Oh, definitely.
What do you
And
mean by that?
while Donkey Kong is faster, that's still 19 Crashes, and he's not heavily faster, or at least not. Well, he is faster. This is Sonic speed versus light speed. This isn't like light speed versus bullet time. So I think he would still have a hard time fighting 19 Crashes at once.
Is bullet time not roughly Sonic speed?
I'm not good at speed. My point was, while DK is faster, it's not like he's so fast you would hit all of them at once.
I gotcha.
Oh, like a statue blitz or something, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Those
Mario,
are.
What is
That isn't. Oh, sorry.
what is DK gonna do when he's getting jumped?
Okay. That is a very impressive weapon, I would say, to be able to create 19 clones. It would be unfortunate if DK can steal that.
Oh?
I think I know where you're going with this.
So now, it seems like they are considering as of Death Battle, they are considering the spin-off titles as part of the Mario canon. And in those, there is 2 items I wanted to bring importance to. The Plunder Chest, and then there's another one in Mario Party 3 that's basically like a more powerful version of it, which allows the user to steal an item of the person they target. So
Nice.
Donkey Kong could use this to steal the Make Another Inator or any of the masks, or basically anything at Crash's disposal. Along with that, he has shown in the spin-off titles to have used many of the Mario power-ups. As shown in the Mario movie, he has used the Fire Flower, and while you brought up in Mario Golf World Tour, he also used the Ice Flower, which doesn't seem like it would be as impressive because both have that immunity to ice. Until you remember that, it says, like, if you remember correctly, that mask was able to create an Ice Age. And you know what would be more impressive than causing an Ice Age? Freezing a star, which the Ice Flower can do. And also in that game, there is the Gold Flower, which could immediately kill Crash on the spot.
Which game is the Gold Flower?
Mario Golf World Tour.
World Tour, okay.
That the Ice Flower was used in. There's also other powers from the spin-off titles, like the Superstar, the Mega Mushroom. Also, I want to bring up the Cape Feather and the Tanuki Leaf. He has used some powers of the Mario series, which does give him a lot of different things. I also think Donkey Kong outstats Crash and could scale to the rest of the Mario cast. And my reason to this is, can you bring up image 4 I sent you? I grabbed one more image before this started. Pretty sure I sent you on Discord. Now, in the Mario lore, they are the 7 star children. Mario, Luigi, Peach, Wario, Bowser, Yoshi, and Donkey Kong. Now, these are kids born with incredible levels of power. And they have been seen to fight each other a lot. And I definitely think they are comparable to each other. And they have fought many times. Mainly it's all of them battling Bowser.
If I may, I have a quick question. Is there any clarification with the Star Children that that's Donkey Kong and not Cranky Kong because of how that works in the original Donkey Kong games?
Yeah, I was going to say,
Is there a clarification there? Because that does make a difference.
it doesn't really imply like which version of DK it is, like because it also is very confusing, like how Donkey Kong like is, because in some games like they say that he is the son of Cranky Kong, some games they say he's the grandson. It is very confusing, but I
Yeah.
definitely think this version of DK is the Star Child one.
I
do-
see.
You could also probably make the argument that Donkey Kong should scale to or above Cranky in his prime anyways, so it doesn't really matter. But
Yeah,
Possibly, because
I think you can also make the argument that just by existing in that, like it canonizes Donkey Kong being in things like Mario Party and Mario Kart.
is Star Child status like genetic? Is that a question we have to ask?
I
I mean,
mean,
both Mario and Luigi have it.
Does
But-
that mean their parents were star children? I
Well, I mean,
th-
they
Would that
come
this
also
is
from
mean-
going
Stork,
places.
So
I really
know
don't
if it
know.
can be genetic if it's Stork involved.
True.
yeah, I
Okay.
don't think it's like genetic in nature, because if that was the case, Bowser Jr. would also be a Star Child, but it doesn't appear he is.
Mm,
Yeah.
Right.
Star Child kind of strikes me as like some prophecy, something or other, like it's a favored by the gods or something almost.
Yeah,
the
I
storks.
don't think like it. I
Floating
don't think-
shopping list.
I don't think they are comparable to each other when it comes to stats. Like, so I think DK can easily match things like Bowser, who was able to survive black holes, or Mario, who can who lasso celestial bodies, or Wario surviving the Shake King explosion.
I also think Donkey Kong and Bowser's like rivalry in the middle Mario Party games also corroborates this. Like they're basically seen as equals in those games, which I think would give more justification.
Okay. Floating shopping list in the chat says, "Watch it be DK Jr." I was going to mention that. Donkey Kong Jr. Yes, it's unclear if DK is supposed to be Cranky Kong's son or grandson. But what they did make it clear in the old games was Donkey Kong Jr., who has appeared outside the arcades. We saw him in the first Mario Golf, and we saw him in Virtual Boy Golf. Has a different design than Baby Donkey Kong in Yoshi's Island.
Okay.
That may sound like splitting hairs, but he does have a distinctly different design because he has the full white shirt that says Junior on it. And again, he was in the first Mario Golf game. So we've seen him outside the arcades. He still exists. He has just been lost to the bowels of time by Nintendo.
Yeah. Or completely forgotten if you say stuff like the Mario movie, which maybe implies that Donkey Kong Jr. then became DK, like he originally wasn't, but then like grew out of the shirt and put on the tie.
Maybe.
That is true.
Nobody
I'm
cared who he
sure
was till he
South
put on the tie.
Clothes would be a identifier for an adult.
I do think the movie is more dubious than most Mario canon.
Yeah, it definitely is a little questionable.
It did feel like a reboot or like in its own thing more than like trying to represent the franchise as it is. At least when I watched it.
Maybe it might become canon. We never really truly know.
That would be wild if it did. That
Like,
makes
this is
so
the
many
canon.
things so weird.
Especially Seth Rogen is Donkey Kong.
I
That's
don't want Seth Rogen
something.
to be canon to Mario.
We're gonna get Mario and Luigi's dad in Mario Kart 9.
yeah. This is what we're gonna get.
So I'm just trying to think like,
Hey.
I guess he conceded.
No,
He's like, nope, I'm out of here. Pull the
Wi-Fi
sign.
is acting up apparently, according to the chat.
oh no.
Oh no.
Sorry about
Yeah.
that. My wife, everyone started buffering and I couldn't hear anyone. So then my Wi-Fi started acting up.
All right.
Okay.
Well, while you were gone, we decided that a DK wins, so I guess the debate's over, unfortunately.
Good to know. Thank you. Well,
But
okay.
if it- If it wasn't, what would be your counter argument?
So the plunder chest is a fair argument. This one will also sound like splitting hairs, but when have we seen Donkey Kong actually fight Mario outside of the Mario versus Donkey Kong games, the handheld ones? Because outside of using Smash Brothers, which Death Battle doesn't use, I have not seen Donkey Kong actually fight Mario. So I really feel like scaling is more questionable than just, well, they're all part of the same cast.
They have interacted on numerous occasions throughout the other spin-off titles, the Mario Sports titles, Mario Party, and Mario Kart. So I don't think they are considered part of the same canon.
No, I buy that they're the same canon, but I don't really feel like they've actually fought each other. The most I've really seen is 2 examples in the sports games where I talked about this. One time where he accidentally slammed Wario into the ground, but that was only up to like Wario's waist. He did not like send him flying through the earth. And the second time was in the opening to Super Sluggers, where he elbow checked Luigi across the baseball stadium. And that was it. I've not really seen him like really fight Mario or Luigi or anyone else outside of the games explicitly titled Mario versus Donkey Kong.
Isn't there a Mario Party minigame where that is literally tug of war?
Yeah, there is the Mario Party tug of war minigame, which has them literally play tug of war over a giant piranha plant.
So he pulls better than Mario and the rest of the cast, is what you're saying?
Well, definitely can show that he is as strong, if not stronger, than Mario, Luigi, Peach, Wario, or Yoshi.
Yeah, you could definitely argue that like the consistent physical strength needed for most Mario Party minigames makes most of the characters that appear in them roughly equal.
That's a fair point. All right.
I do have a question, actually.
Yeah.
Sorry to interject, but I do have a
No problem.
very interesting question. So, aside from like the cross, like essentially the scale, like they scale to the cast and stuff like that. I think a bigger question that I'm really fascinated in is, so y'all remember when DK like punched the moon, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I was wondering, like, what does Crash have like to combat? Does he have like a similar feat, like on this level or something? I was just curious.
He has a slightly similar feat. I have slides of other feats, but I don't have slides of. If you will remember in Crash versus Spyro, when they talked about him crash landing in Cortex's ship, the thing about that is that Crash was in Cortex's ship, and that re-entered the Earth's atmosphere. It was outside of Earth's atmosphere and re-entered collision and crashed into the side of that island. And both Crash and Aku Aku were completely unharmed. And Aku Aku personally said he couldn't believe that even worked. And Crash literally just was in the ship when it was crash landing into the Earth. Whereas the Moon and DK, while an impressive feat, seemed like it was a much smaller distance. And also, this will sound like the ultimate splitting hairs. After DK punches the Moon and it goes back, he is massaging his knuckle, which is bright red. So while he was capable of that seriously hurt him still, or at least it was significant enough force that it hurt his hand. And Crash didn't even react to the re-entry. Like, that was literally nothing to him. And that also says to me that Aku Aku can protect Crash from anything DK does. And while Aku Aku is of course not invincible, that means like if DK wound up like his strongest punch, I think Aku Aku could shield it or survive it for Crash. I feel, based on that.
Yeah, logic seems to make sense in a sense of like, well, if DK's hands are like bright red and he's like, dang, that actually hurt. It's like this. It implies that like this is probably near his like max let's say attack potency or endurability if the whole him scaling to the Mario cast weren't to be buyed, right?
Yeah, that definitely seemed like it.
Because that was a lot.
Oh, sorry, I'll let you.
Because that was the logic they used in DK versus Knuckles, and of course that's a much older episode, but that's what they were going with. They were focusing on Donkey Kong series rather than his appearances in the Mario games. But of course, this was different.
If you were to look at the feats that they did in those episodes, they roughly said that DK's punch was around 3,000 megatons of force, and they said that the explosion that Crash survived was around 2 million or like 2 megatons of force. So the Moon Punch was over 150,000 times more powerful, or not 100. 1,500 times more powerful than the explosion that Crash survived. So it definitely seems like, and by Aku saying that they couldn't believe they survived, I don't feel like that's like near the limit of what Aku can protect Crash for. So I definitely feel like maybe he could take like a hit or two, but if like DK was to like full out a giant punch against Crash, I don't think he could protect him, which would probably mean that Crash would probably be sent as energy splattered across Saturn.
Well, fair enough. Although I will say that fair enough, but I don't think DK, to my knowledge at least, has launched anyone out of orbit. Outside of that moon feat, I've not seen him launch someone out of orbit. Like when we beat up the Tikis in the Returns games and the bosses, the screen cuts to black. We don't see how far they fly. So we don't know if he can like launch, how far he can launch someone with just his punches. And also those things are the size of my head. So that's a different case. It's not surprising how far he can send it. I want to briefly go back to something you pointed out about the masks. You talked about the Ice Age. I wanted to go over that because of Tropical Freeze. Would you pull up slide 1, please?
Slide 1.
Yes. Because while this is getting into lower stats, I think it's worth discussing. So, of course, in Wrath of Cortex, Uka Uka, who is considered stronger than the Elemental Masks, summons them anyway because we needed a new gimmick for this game. And the Elemental Masks are made up of Arlie Ermy, the Water Mask, Mark Hamill, the Fire Mask, Biff Tannen, the Rock Mask, and the new voice of Crash as the Water Mask because their actual names are boring. But an important line here was when Uka Uka and Aku Aku are arguing about them, Aku Aku reminds Uka of how powerful they were. And Uka Uka says exactly, so they were responsible for a few earthquakes, floods, and that little ice age a couple of centuries back. Unfortunately, we don't see this ice age. And ice age could mean anywhere from an island to continental. You know who does have an island ice age? DK. What does Donkey Kong do to get rid of his ice age? He blows into a horn and flowers come out. In the closing cutscene of Tropical Freeze, they use the ice horn that the Walrus captain was using to create the Ice Age, which seemed to cover all of Donkey Kong Island. Technically, the worlds, not all of them are frozen over, but in the cutscene, it shows all of the island being frozen. DK did not do anything except blow into the horn, and then the horn didn't like shatter all of the ice or melt it all. It created this stream of flowers. And while it was pretty, that's not really a strength feat. Whereas the other thing about the masks is that it's been pointed out it wasn't clear if the Ice Age was caused by one of them or all of them, but the Water Mask is the only one that freezes Crash in the final battle. So I'm willing to bet it was just because of him. And in this cutscene, when the Uka and Aku are arguing, all 4 masks attacked Aku Aku at once, and he didn't even flinch. He ran away because he had to go get Crash and tell them, but they didn't even flinch. He didn't even flinch from it. And that you could say that's obviously not their max strength, but I think it's still worth pointing out. And the word planet is thrown around multiple times in the game, more because Cortex wants to conquer the entire planet, but we don't see them do that. So it's fair to assume that they would have eventually destroyed the entire planet.
Okay. That's pretty good.
So yeah, it's unfortunately a little too vague a feat that could put Crash anywhere from bigger island to multi-continental planet. But it's just a little too vague, unfortunately, without any visual evidence. But I think it was still worth pointing out with what the game does show us.
Okay.
And in Wrath of Cortex, Crash both beats each mask individually when they're powering Crunch, each one individually, and then in the final battle, fights all 4 masks at once, and Crunch and Cortex, and still beat them. So Crash, I think,
all
is...
At once?
Yes, he fought all of them at once.
Like the masks and Crunch?
Yes. All 4 masks were doing different attacks, and Crunch was attacking, and you had to use the Fruit Bazooka to hurt Crunch to beat the boss. Again, the Fruit Bazooka.
I do feel like Crunch probably has a somewhat similar fighting style to DK.
From what we've seen, yes. From what we've seen, yes.
Okay.
But we haven't really seen Crunch fight a lot because all of his bosses in Wrath of Cortex involve one of the elemental masks, and he kind of relies on them to do attacks. But he can still fight himself. He just doesn't do it a lot because I think the series didn't know what to do with Crunch after Wrath of Cortex. And it was kind of since they kind of just turned him into Mr. T.
Okay, then.
If you've seen the Titans games, you know what I mean. They literally just gave him a Mr. T voice, and he just yells a lot.
That's one way to go with the character.
Gilded, we are using all of the games, not just 1 to 4. Though I will bring up 4 in a bit.
Okay, I would say that is cool, and I did mention previously that the Ice Flower definitely can surpass that level of power with being able to 3 stars, which was stated by in Mario and Luigi Brothership. But that's not the only star powerful item that DK has, because there's another item he has, and he actually has a lot of them. That being the stars.
The power stars?
Yeah, the power stars.
Mm-hmm.
So, in Mario Party, while it is a little confusing if the power stars and the superstars are are the same thing, they are still powerful because at the end of Mario Party 4, they were able to. Seems like just a single one was able to create a constellation of the character of it. So basically, if you beat the game as Donkey Kong, you got a constellation of DK. Same thing if you were as Daisy, Wario, Peach, etc. Now, the interesting thing is that Donkey Kong does not just have 1 star. He has a lot of stars. Because in Mario Party 5 through 8, he was not a playable character. He was basically I know you mentioned Smelt that he was basically the opposite of Bowser. And in that game, Donkey Kong basically could give coin. If you land on DK's face, you can either get coins, do a DK minigame, or potentially even get a star from him. And it's very impressive because also on some boards, mainly Clockwork Castle and Castaway Bay in Mario Party 6, he is the main source of stars. You have to go to DK to get the stars.
Yeah.
It's a little
That's a fair
that the character known for hoarding their island's goods is the one that's giving away stuff in Mario Party.
Well, they're not edible, so that's why he's giving them away.
Fair enough.
That's a fair point. I'll give you Mario Party 5 through 8. I looked at the Mario Party 4 cutscene. I don't get it because Toad kind of just walks up to your character, smiles at them, and then points up at the sky, and you see the constellation being formed. And it's like, who made the constellation? Did someone throw the star up there in orbit? Because I didn't see DK get the star, and then he tossed it into the sky to form that constellation. I don't really get where he get that, where Mario Party 4 is concerned. I get that it created a constellation, but I don't really see how that applies to Donkey Kong outside of look, it's him. And I could be missing something, but
the stars have also done other impressive feats. For example, in Mario Party 2, you are empowered by the superstar, and you are able to throw a metal Bowser across, out of orbit across the planet.
Okay. Yeah.
Which was so impressive that no character could even lift him. Not even, which includes DK. DK couldn't even lift the metal.
DK and Bowser. Mario couldn't lift him as Metal Mario. Yeah, as Metal Bowser. Okay, yeah, that I got. I feel like Mario Party 4 is just a really weird way to argue that because I don't get how that star plays a part.
And by that, they have shown that they can easily with the superstar. It should be on a similar level of power as, say, the Yoshi feat that was able to cause the constellation, or the other feats of these characters doing these insane planetary or star level feats.
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna go to planetary. You know how we talked about how Aku Aku's best was that island feat? Would you pull up slide 2 for me?
All right, let's see what's cooking here.
So you know how Eggman likes the moon? Cortex decided he really likes the planet. And he likes it so much he wants a version of it to put on his shelf. In Crash Bandicoot, The Big Adventure, known as Crash Bandicoot Xylophone Saxophone outside the US, this is a laser that shrunk the entire planet to the size of Cortex's hand. And because of how the GBA does not really do cutscenes, they do slideshow, I'd say that this feat took about 2 seconds. And that's reliable with how the laser affects you in the final battle with Cortex. In the final battle with Cortex, you are playing as Crash, and you have to lure Cortex to shoot the 3 gems that are stabilizing, what he calls stabilizing the shrinking laser. And if you get hit by it, it will instantly shrink you out of existence. Like, you shrink so small, you cannot, Crash shrinks so small, he cannot be seen anymore. And that death animation is less than 2 seconds long. So this thing works extremely fast. However, you can come into this battle using Aku Aku, and Aku Aku will tank the hit. So Aku Aku can tank a hit that shrunk the entire planet in 2 seconds for Crash Bandicoot. And then
when the Earth gets that small, we're reaching like black hole levels of density there.
What in the despicable me?
Oh, and by the way, and Cortex literally just holds it in his hand. Like, he just holds it between his fingers and talks about how he is all powerful now. He didn't need like protective gloves or anything. He just shrunk it, and then he suddenly has it in his hand. And Coco used the crystals you have to collect to somehow reverse that and bring Crash back up to his normal size, which is how you fought Cortex in this fight.
So does this mean Crash Bandicoot takes place on our planet?
Potentially. That's what this cutscene, that's what this game suggested.
I don't know if there's much potentially about it. That's Africa and that's South America.
Okay,
right
yeah.
there.
I don't say potentially. I mean more. We've never seen him interact with real people beyond this, to my knowledge. But yes.
All right then.
And then I just included that extra slide of him flying out of the spaceship in his space motorcycle, since
cool as
this
shit.
is the game. Yeah, it looks amazing, and this is the game he used in. If you get all of the gems and crystals in Huge Adventure, then you get the secret boss, and the secret boss is called Mega Mix. And what happens is when you destroy all 3 crystals, the power from it accidentally merges Cortex, Dingodile, Engine, and Tiny Tiger into this horrifying abomination called Mega Mix. And then that thing chases after you, and you get a secret boss, which is more a running simulator where you have to escape it or it will one-shot you. And then if you escape it, then Crash escapes the spaceship again. It blows up, and then we get a final scene showing that the bad guys escaped. Unfortunately, looking at the size of the spaceship, I'd say it's maybe the size of a continent at most. No one was in it when it exploded, so no one scales to survive from that. But yes, I think this is potentially Crash's best feat. Because again, all of the game takes place on that shrunken Earth. Then Coco reversed it off screen just using the crystals, because these crystals are just so powerful apparently in the games. And then the laser, Aku Aku can instantly tank the laser for Crash. And Aku Aku just gets destroyed like usual. He does not get shrunk. So that has the power to destroy him.
I do have a question about Aku Aku, just because I've heard him be brought up. If I remember correctly, he has a cooldown, doesn't he?
No. What happens is that he has levels of durability. As in, you get 1 Aku Aku, he can tank 1 hit for you of any kind. You get 2, he glows gold, and you can tank 2 hits. And you get 3, you get Invincible Crash. And Invincible Crash survives everything. And Invincible Crash just lasts for, I don't remember exactly how long it lasts. I guess like around maybe 7 seconds. But it can survive literally anything.
And then after that 7 seconds is up, how long do you have to wait to be able to use it again?
Oh, you just have to get another mask. There's not a cooldown on it. Once Invincible Crash is up, Aku Aku stays at form 2, gold Aku Aku. So even if like Crash uses invincibility and DK is still alive, Crash still has 2 free hits. There's not a cooldown on that. He just constantly has to keep getting the mask crates.
But I actually think DK actually has multiple forms of invincibility that I actually want to bring up. So he can definitely survive longer than the invincible Crash will allow him, and could keep fighting after that. So the 3 things I wanted to bring up for these, because it seems like the only form of invincibility Crash has is Aku Aku. Meanwhile, from what I've seen, DK has 3. I previously mentioned the superstars that he has, which he has a lot of. He also has the crystal stars from Donkey Kong Jungle Climber, which not only gave him invincibility, but powered flight for a short period of time. And then there's also Strong Kong, which seems to last around 30 seconds, so it can last way longer than invincibility Crash can.
Okay.
So what is Crash's arsenal again? Like, what if we lay out all his tools in front of him? What does he have to work with?
If we have all his tools, he has around, I'd say, he has all these different vehicles. He has multiple forms of the Fruit Bazooka. He has the Make Another Nader. He has the Mecha Bandicoot, which is one of his vehicles. Real fast, let me pull up the list because I want to see if there's anything. I want to double check if there's anything I'm missing. I'm gonna pull up the list, and actually, this is part of his arsenal. Would you pull up slide 4? I'm gonna start talking about Crash Bandicoot 4 now, because I wanted to save that for later.
Well, we are 45 minutes in, so it is currently later.
All right, so these are, of course, the quantum masks from Crash 4, and I'm going to describe them, go into a bit more detail later, but I want to just go into their powers right now. Lonnie Lowly is the blue mask. He can shift objects in and out of existence. And what that means is when you're playing through levels, there will be like obstacles and like mostly obstacles that are just blue outlines and seem to be like ghostly and faded. He can shift those in and out of existence again instantly. Like it is extremely fast.
Like any objects or specific types of objects?
It seems to be specific types because we don't see like him doing it in a cutscene. But what that means is that like basically he could like let's kind of get situational with this. Let's say there's a giant wall in front of Crash when he's running away from DK and he has that mask. He could jump through the ghostly part, turn it to normal, and DK runs into the wall like Wile E. Coyote. It would be more as a way of avoiding and escaping DK than it would be to fight him. But Lonnie Lowly can also turn the user invisible in Crash Team Rumble. Crash Team Rumble is the most recent Crash game currently because of things like games getting canceled, of course, because that's what just happens. But it can turn the user invisible. And I have not seen in my research any way DK can see someone who is invisible except for the coconuts, because they are homing coconuts, if those can even find someone invisible. And I don't know if they can or not. Akano is the purple mask, and he performs the dark matter spin. This is an infinite spin that is capable of breaking locked crates, something Crash cannot do on his own. And it gives him a double jump of sorts, but that spin is literally indefinite. He can keep going until you decide you want to stop using it. And that makes him harder to control in the game. But for fighting, that means he can just keep going at it.
The term dark matter certainly grabs my attention.
I think that was I genuinely think that was just a name they came up with, because one of the things you used Akano for is there are literally just green colored enemies and obstacles that you cannot defeat on your own that he can. And it's like some specific form of magic or whatever in the, I'm going to say, in the embryo stages of Crash 4. But I legitimately feel like dark matter was just the name they chose. There isn't like any indication of his power being tied to like a black hole or something in that regard. Kapunawa. I think this is the best mask of the 4 for Crash to have. I made a mistype. It's not 7 seconds. It is roughly 3 to 4 seconds, but it can slow down time for the user. And she has a very short cooldown. Like you can keep using, there's like barely 2 seconds between using her each time. And then she personally has complete knowledge of time. As she put it, she sees everything, and I mean everything. So she could, by all accounts and purposes, literally psychically tell Crash everything DK is going to try and do during the fight. Like, he's going to hit you, dodge. He's going to hit you, move to here. And then later in the game, because the big thing about Crash 4 is, of course, multiverse using dimensional rifts that are getting opened by by Entropy and Cortex. Cortex used just Kapunawa, just using like a grapple laser from his gun to open a dimensional rift with her that went back over 100 years, over 1,000 years. Because they went from 3023 to 1996, and he just opened up a rift just using her to do that.
Did he need like machinery that she was hooked into, or was it just
No,
like...
he just grabbed her. He has his little ray gun. He just grabbed her like with a beam and just carried her with him. It's like he willed her to do that, and it opened up. He didn't have to use a machine or anything for it.
So this is a little dark, but hear me out. Sen puts DK in a rift that's like 70 years ago, and then Donkey Kong via the long way gets back to the fight, but now he's like 100 years old, and then Crash just beats up an old man. Could that happen?
I will get to that. I have something similar to that later.
I thought you were going to say he was going to go back and kill Cranky Kong before DK.
Crash would never be that cold-blooded. Like, even if he got that idea, he would never do that. He would like
Cortex, on the other hand, probably would.
Oh, Cortex absolutely no. That's the whole point of Crash 4. Cortex at the end of the game tries to go back to 1996, which is when Crash Bandicoot 1 takes place, and fights with his old self to try and stop Crash from being created.
Oh.
He tries to reverse Flash Crash Bandicoot, basically. That's the best example I have. He basically tries to grandfather's paradox him because he personally says, I can't kill me because that would erase me, so I guess I'll have to kill you. He knows he would create a grandfather's paradox by killing himself, so he just knocks himself out, and then you fight Cortex, who is using all of the masks. And finally, there's the last mask is Akano, who controls gravity. There is one cutscene of him using it on other people, and he just flips them from the ground to the ceiling suddenly. But in the final boss with Cortex, when Cortex uses it, it flips the entire screen upside down. And I legitimately can't tell if that means he flipped the entire room, he flipped his entire castle upside down, or if that means he was flipping all of reality upside down to do that. It's a little hard to assume.
I'm kind of assuming it's the third option because he did flip it upside down, but it didn't seem like to affect Crash or anyone else at all. It just seemed just to affect just the screen.
Yes. So that suggests that he could do that, and that he could also at least Akano on his own, because Crash cannot do this to enemies. He does it to himself when he's wearing Akano. Akano could just flip Donkey Kong's gravity at any point and repeatedly do it. When you use the gravity mask, you can flip upside down twice in a row. So he could keep doing that to Donkey Kong and just confuse the hell out of him.
I mean, I imagine this is going to take place in a forest with no ceilings. Why can't he just send Donkey Kong to space?
He might be able to. I don't know if he could, because again, I'm going off of what the game showed us. So he could do that and just flip his gravity, and then Donkey Kong is just flailing as he flies upwards, since Donkey Kong only has one form of aerial transportation, and that's the barrel blast bongos. And I don't know if he'd be able to pull those out fast enough to resist gravitational pull that affects him instantly. He'd be flying upward. He'd be flying upward, pull out his bongos and start his barrel and start desperately mashing them to stay in Earth's atmosphere. He just pull them out and go.
Okay, this has sold me on this episode. This is peak.
What if he drops the bongos and they fall to Earth as he's falling into space? Are the bongos?
And he's falling up into space.
What a situation!
He lands on the moon, and that's how he punches the moon to Crash.
Yeah.
So guess who can survive in space without needing any form of oxygen?
Both.
Crash Bandicoot can.
Well, Donkey Kong has shown that he can also survive like in orbit or like in deep space without any form of protection. Because like
Yes,
in
that's
various
my
Mario
point.
games and the
That's
Donkey
my
Kong.
point.
So basically, DK would just be stuck in space unless he could bring himself or use the barrel. Or,
I don't know if the barrel blast can re-enter the atmosphere because we have seen Crash survive atmospheric reentry. But my point is, Crash can't knock DK into space. DK might be able to. If Crash flips DK's gravity and he flies into space, guess who's hopping on his space motorcycle and following him up there? So that now we have an ape and a Bandicoot fighting in the stars. Like we could, like this is how these two pull a Mario and Sonic 2018. Like where those two had to use their super forms. Crash just flips DK's gravity, and now suddenly they're fighting in space. They're fighting each other in space. And Crash has much more maneuverability in space than Donkey Kong does.
So what happens if Strong Kong outlasts Invincible Crash, and then Crash just uses the time has to go 30 seconds in the future where Strong Kong runs out?
DK can
Strong
just
Kong
use.
runs out.
Well, I don't think that would matter that much because DK is still much stronger, faster, and much more durable than Crash. So he definitely can take a lot of the punishment that Crash deals. And I also think most of the Quantum Mass are not going to be that useful in this fight. Because I would say, like you mentioned, I forgot his name, like the Gravity Mask is definitely It definitely has some potential, but I definitely think it's very limited because it's basically the only thing it can do is possibly reverse DK's gravity. Lana Loli, I think, is the next one because it doesn't seem to affect living beings, and while it could cause
It does not. We've not seen it affect living beings. So we've not seen it affect living beings. It would really be a distraction at best. I'm not saying it'd be very helpful, but it would be like a quick distraction. So DK, so that Crash can pull out another vehicle or weapon.
I would say I also would agree that Coupon Watt is the most useful out of all the Quantum Mass because its ability to slow down time is something that we've never seen DK resist. But I do feel like even with that 2-second cooldown, and it's still going to be very short, and it is very short. But I don't think it's enough because DK could just instantly just go in and just punch Crash, which I think even just one punch from DK would be enough to kill Crash.
Fair enough. I'm going to go over a few more of Crash's powers because you asked. What did you want to say?
I just want to say there's something about the gravity mask I just thought of, and I'm sorry, Paul. I feel like I'm always arguing against you in this. I'm just much more familiar with Donkey Kong.
No problem.
If Donkey Kong scales to Mario characters can outswim a black hole.
Yes, they can outflap their wings a black hole. Yes.
Would that not mean he could probably also kind of outmaneuver the gravity reversal?
I don't know.
Donkey Kong can't fly in like normal atmosphere, so the fact that he can fly in like space atmosphere makes almost no sense to me.
Yeah, wait, that black hole mini game. Which games are that? Is that one in again?
Pretty sure it's Mario Party 5.
Yeah, isn't Mario Party 5 one where you don't play as Donkey Kong?
Yeah, it is. So
yeah, but he would still scale to the later games, would he not?
Yeah, he definitely would still scale to the characters who have outswam the black hole, like Mario and Luigi.
But he wouldn't have the ability.
I'm not talking about that from I'm not speaking about that from durability. I'm speaking from maneuverability.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Oh, and also real fast, DK used to be able to breathe underwater indefinitely. In the Returns games, he has to breathe and occasionally come up for air, but he can still do it. Crash always needs a breathing apparatus underwater. Crash cannot swim. Like that's one of his legit weaknesses.
Wait,
so
why can he survive in space if he can drown?
Maybe his
video game logic.
Maybe his lungs specifically hate water.
Is this like a deep
I think it's
where space is actually just full of air for some reason, so people can breathe and travel in ships?
It's because we've only ever seen him underwater with scuba gear or in like the submarine. Whereas in space, we've seen him riding his space motorcycle, and he doesn't have like a suit or something. He does not have like an astronaut suit. But in Entranced, which is the second GBA game, Coco has these terrible mini games where you have to ride through this lame little this lame little mini game where you're flying through space to go through boosts, and she is wearing a spacesuit. So Coco seemingly does need to breathe in space. Crash does not. So that might literally just be him.
Maybe it's like a confidence thing. Like, he doesn't think he can swim, so he succumbs. But because he doesn't know how dangerous space is, he's just chill with it.
Maybe.
Or maybe
That's
his
certainly
lungs
possible.
are weak to salt. Maybe
like-
that's
Okay.
it.
It's the
Maybe-
Martian Manhunter thing. He actually can breathe underwater, but he just doesn't think he can.
Okay, I'm gonna go over some of Crash's power-ups because he has a kind of a lot of random stuff, and some of it I do question is, does he really have access to that? But he has invisibility both in Crash Team Rumble and in the racing games. There's invisibility crate, and when he is invisible, he is untouchable. He can walk through like a swarm of lasers while invisible, and it did not touch him.
So he's
So,
intangible
invisible-
as well.
Yes, he's intangible when invisible. So even if like the coconuts could track him while invisible, they will just pass right through him. So when he's using the mask, when he's using the invisibility, which of course is not permanent, though I don't know how long it lasts, DK would literally not be able to hurt him.
Okay.
And
I feel like we've been talking about Crash's arsenal for a while now. Is there any big things Crash has left that you haven't brought up yet?
yes, two things. And we're going to start with the Crash 401. Please pull up slide 5 because I've seen this debated quite a bit.
All right. Oh.
Universe. Ooh, universe.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this has been debated for a while since the quantum masks were introduced in Crash 4 because of the dimensional rifts. However, I may sound like I'm shooting myself in the foot here, but I'm really not sure if this really counts because Entropy talks about how he will use the quantum masks, not the mask, he'll use the rifts to take over and crush their enemies and conquer pretty much everything, which is established to be a multiverse. But he did not succeed in doing that. The most they did was open up these rifts. And the thing is, while these rifts were of course a problem and they need to get the masks to close them all, they didn't seem to be harming the universe or causing lasting effects. And what I mean by this is, this will seem like a weird example, but in the Spider-Man 90s cartoon, there is an episode with the Spot, and what he finds out is the more of his holes he opens, his spots. At one point, he opens up one above the city that is essentially creating a black hole. And it's starting to destroy the city if he does not close it. The rifts don't do that. The rifts are literally there for teleportation purposes. And they didn't seem to be hurting the universe or anything. So when the quantum masks all swirl around the machine that's opening all of these bad rifts and close them all, I don't really know if that's a universal feat as much as just cleaning up.
It doesn't really strike me as a universal feat, but what does strike me is at the end of this scan here, it mentions that the masks can send someone to the end of the universe.
So
which
yes,
I feel would
what
be helpful
happened
in a death battle.
Yes, that's what I was going to bring up with what you talked about earlier about traveling through time to kill Cranky Kong. That was a sentence.
What?
So at the end of this cutscene, after you defeat current modern Cortex, old Cortex wakes up, goes to create Cortex 1, goes to create Crash Bandicoot 1, and Cortex says, "What are you going to do with me? Somebody needs a timeout. Someplace he can't cause any trouble. Enjoy the end of the universe." And they just open up one rift that sucks him in. He goes, "Whoa!" And then he wakes up and he's on this random sandy beach that's supposedly at the end of the universe. And what I think this means is in SpongeBob versus Super Friends Aquaman, when Aquaman draws that door and then sends SpongeBob through it, and it literally says the end of the universe on it.
Oh,
I think it'd be like that.
We're talking. I was thinking timeline-wise. I was thinking heat death.
Yeah, that's
No, this is more a teleportation thing. Kapuna Wa traveled Cortex through time, but the rift looked exactly the same. Here, they just dumped him on some random planet. So Crash could basically use this as a way to kind of get rid of Donkey Kong.
He dumped Donkey Kong into the sun.
Maybe, but even if Donkey Kong could survive that, Crash could literally keep doing this as much as he needed to if he was pretty much like on the ropes and panicking. Because Crash does enjoy fighting himself. Not fighting himself, though. Crash does fight himself. Crash enjoys fighting. He wouldn't like use this to like get rid of DK if he was panicking, but he would basically use this as a last-ditch effort to get rid of him. If he was like really getting scared, he would use this to try and like go get away from me. I'm afraid of you. And I don't know if DK would have a way of getting back.
Well, I definitely think you can say he has a way if, like you say, the superstars and the power stars are the same, are comparable to each other, because the power stars were able to transfer Mario from the edge of the universe to the Comet Observatory. So it's completely possible they could do the same thing for DK.
Okay.
But I also wanted to bring that up because you mentioned that it is possible a universal feat for Crash. There is also one for Donkey Kong that I wanted to bring up, which are like three together. Three points I want to make together. Can you bring them up?
There are 3 points together?
Yeah, I sent you like two images.
Yeah, you sent me 2 images and also a video.
Yeah, which kind of all go together. They all go together for this
what order
point.
do you want them in?
Oh crap! I found the left one first. I wanted to bring up first. So in Mario Party 5, it is said. Well, it says that the Dream Depot and the Dreams, which is basically the hub of all dreams throughout the Mario universe. It also seems that in Dream Team, it kind of supports this claim that all the dreams are a universe. Also, along with the future dream. Can you bring up image 2 now? Because in this game, Bowser was going to destroy the Dream Depot, which is like the hub of all the dreams, which would affect every single dream in existence. And
threatening to ruin all the dreams.
Now in Mario Party 5, you can land on a Bowser's face, and that can be a horrible thing.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a rare event that can happen in Mario Party 5. Can you bring up the video?
I can.
All right. So here, this just goes along with my point. In that, like, see, Wario just in this and immediately gets crushed by Bowser. He can do various things to you, steal your items, swap spaces, but on a rare case, DK can save you.
Oh, he's playing his theme song.
Yeah. And
I will say that
causes
seems like
Bowser
his
to
strongest punch only moved him like 3 feet. I was
Yeah,
expecting
it's
to go flying
that.
off the screen.
Yeah, like that was more like a get off my friend punch.
It definitely seems like but DK definitely seems like he can match that level of power of universal to universal level threats like Bowser.
With all due respect, that looked more like my friend was sitting in that chair. Get off him! That did not seem like Bowser was using this ruin dreams powers. He was threatening. That seemed like he was going to do something to you, and then Donkey Kong just said no. That didn't really seem like Donkey Kong's comparable to threatening universes of dreams. In addition to, this will sound so much like splitting hairs, that said, ruin all dreams, that could basically mean you're having a wonderful dream when you're in a bed of flowers, and then Bowser walks in and says, "Haha, you're in a test you didn't study for now," and he has ruined your dream.
If I can ask a question, slightly just because there's something I'm really curious about with these two characters and specifically. Who is more intelligent? Because my understanding is that neither one is particularly the sharpest tool in the shed.
I think both are intelligent in their own separate ways. I think Crash is definitely more of a problem solver. And when it comes to general intelligence, I would say Crash is smarter. But when it comes to like battle intelligence and experience, I would give that edge to DK. He definitely both have fought a lot of different opponents, but I don't think DK has fought more unique and definitely fought them for a lot longer. Because even if you consider like if he's Donkey Kong Jr. or the grandson of Cranky Kong, he's been fighting people since he was a kid or maybe even a toddler. So he's been doing this for way longer than Crash has. And
DK does not really get a lot of variety in who he's fighting, especially in his own series, because even when he is actually competent, K. Rool is not like this brilliant strategist, and he relies far more on his physical power. And at his dumbest, he is a villain who thinks that a machine that swaps brains will transfer the knowledge from books into his head because he thinks books have brains. That actually happened. It was in the cartoon. Everyone's an idiot. As far as who is smarter, I'll be completely honest. Are you familiar with that panel in Dragon Ball Super where they're preparing for the tournament and everyone has to take a written test and then Goku nearly fails the test?
Yeah.
That's Crash, honestly. Like if you sat DK and Crash down and forced them to take a test, DK would get more answers right. I feel he is more genuinely intelligent, but Crash is more of a thinker, a problem solver. Insert whiz moment in Crash and Spyro here, but DK is much more. He is not brainless. He is not like a mindless brute. He does not just come in swinging his fist, and when that doesn't work, he doesn't do anything. But Crash is much more of a thinker. He will strategize. He will improvise very quickly. If something does not work, he will grab something else. He's kind of like Rocket Raccoon. If a gun doesn't work, use a bigger gun. If the gun doesn't work, use a tiny pistol. If the pistol didn't work, get in a giant mech and start shooting fruit at them. He will constantly keep throwing out new options. He does not stick to something if it is not working, and he chooses new options constantly. And that's something I think he really helps him, because he can constantly keep throwing new stuff at Donkey Kong. Even if it's not doing enough damage, he can keep volleying stuff that is confusing Donkey Kong to the point of where he loses track of him. And that's where I really think the make another Nader would come in handy, because let's say we make 16 crashes. Now let's say each crash pulls out a different weapon Crash has. And suddenly Donkey Kong is getting hit by all of these at once, and he is slamming his fists on the ground wildly trying to find him. Like, for an animation example, the scene in Donkey Kong versus Knuckles, where Knuckles is burrowing through the ground and keeps hitting Donkey Kong. Think something like that, where Donkey Kong is obviously not stupid, but he just keeps getting surprised by Knuckles hitting him underground, and then multiply that by 16.
Okay.
So as far as their intelligence goes, I do think it plays a major part in this fight, but I think Crash has better tactics and planning than Donkey Kong, or as little as Crash planned.
We have talked a lot about Crash's various arsenal. What does Donkey Kong have in terms of like an arsenal of weapons? Like, what does he have to work with?
Well, I already mentioned that he has some of the Mario power-ups, and I decided to be a little bit like going like the middle territory, because it definitely could be implied that he could have the entire Mario arsenal, which is massive, but I didn't feel like I felt like I would just go with the middle ground and say like he only gets the power-ups he has used in the game, in the spin-off titles. So
I think that'd be fair.
So like I mentioned, the Fire Flower, Ice Flower, Gold Flower, the Mega Mushroom. He's used the regular mushroom also in Mario Karts. The Superstar, the Cape Feather, and the Tanuki Tail. Also, he's used various weapons like the Coconut Gun, Orange Grenades. He's also used There's also a giant mech he pilots in Donkey Kong and Mario vs. Donkey Kong.
They both
Which-
have mechs.
Yeah, so
Oh yeah,
honestly,
they
we
do.
could have a Bowser versus Eggman moment in there. Just
Well, we're already getting a Mario versus Sonic 2018 moment. Why not? I want to ask, what does DK have for the air? Like, what does he have aerial wise? Like to get him in the air and keep fighting up there?
well, he first has like I know you mentioned the Bongo jetpack.
Yeah, the barrel
But
blast. Yeah.
Yeah, he has also shown that he. And I also mentioned earlier the Crystal Stars, which does give him sustained flight for a bit.
Okay.
And
Okay.
but he can also summon barrels, the arrow barrels that could just launch him throughout the air. And it seems like he can summon multiple of them.
Okay. Yeah, I forgot about the arrow barrels. I asked because I forgot. I talked about what Crash has in the air. I forgot he also has. He has a magic carpet that can shoot balls of energy. His copter pack, a random jetpack. Just he has a lot of different options in the air. To go back to Crash versus Spyro, while I like that, it feels like Crash just had his copter pack. Spyro destroyed it. Crash had like 5 other options to keep fighting in the air that he could have just pulled out of his ass and started using. And I do mean literally, because Crash does not really have hammer space per se, but he does have a habit of kind of just pulling things out of nowhere. Like I'm gonna go to this. In the Insane Trilogy, when Crash is pulling out crystals or gems he collected in levels, he can smack his ear and they fall out of there. He can barf them up like that, or he can literally reach into his pants and just pull them out of nowhere. The crystal is the crystal is 2/3 the size of Crash, so that is not fitting in his pocket at its normal size. And the gems are about the size of his torso. So he has kind of like a limited form of hammer space.
Okay.
That's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, but not to the point of like he can just start pulling things out of nowhere constantly. He does not have Toon Force level hammer space. It is more just how his body and physicality works.
He has like an
To an
inventory,
extent.
basically.
Yes.
I feel like
He
we're
has an
kind
inventory.
of starting to get close to the end of our arguments, more or less. So I'm
All
going
right,
to
then.
start the poll up.
May I?
Yeah,
may I
now's the
pull up
time
my-
to do like final arguments? Yeah.
Here's my final argument. Please give us slide 6. Oh, and insert glass breaking sound here. That's the wrong slide. Whoops. I said 6. That should be slide 7. That should be slide 7. Can you go back one, please?
You gave me 6 slides.
What? That should be in there.
What is your final argument you speak of?
Ever heard of Skylanders?
Oh no.
You added this
Oh
in after the fact.
no.
Hang on, I'll try to.
Oh crap!
You-
Sorry, I thought I had that in
You,
beforehand.
you start describing now. I'll grab it.
So
Wait, Donkey
At
Kong's
first- yes, but Donkey Kong and Bowser were playable characters in Superchargers, which is the 5th game, and he can be played as in Imaginators, but he can be played as Crash Bandicoot and Dr. Neo Cortex were both introduced in Imaginators, and they are what are called senseis. And senseis are a specific class of Skylanders that were introduced in that game. And senseis, one, he should be comparable to the Sensei Wolfgang, who split a small moon in half, and Crash himself is comparable to characters like Spyro and Cinder, who are universal in the Skylanders universe. And also, his combat speed and reactions would be up to speed of light. Also, again, because Skylanders just gives Crash multiple abilities based around his own arsenal because it's a beat 'em up style. One of those abilities Crash gets in the Skylanders is, I think, called 5 lives. And what that does is Crash Bandicoot has lower health than the other Skylanders because he gets an ability that he can revive himself when he loses all his health up to 5 times. He basically gets 5 extra lives, and that is an in-game mechanic. It is not like how extra lives work in the Crash games where you lose a life, where you die, you lose a life. He literally just instantly revives himself. He comes out of a gravestone and revives himself again. and he can do that 5 times. I think this is the highest Crash can possibly get, but I do think he absolutely gets up to at least moon level with Wolfgang, but I'd argue universal. Because there's a DLC level in Skylanders Imagineers called the Thumpin' Wumpa Islands. And in it, Aku Aku says, I quote, "Your old friend Spyro the Dragon is waiting for you." In Crash Purple and Spyro Orange, that was classic Spyro that they met. And the Spyro in Skylanders is either a new continuity or based on the Legends games. And yet Aku Aku says your old friend. So they should be comparable to each other. I don't love the idea of giving Crash Skylanders, though to be fair, obviously Skylanders wasn't really as big a thing when both DK versus Knuckles and especially Crash vs. Spyro came out, and they explicitly didn't use Skylanders for that episode. But I do think it is fair to use because DK is part of a specific class, whereas Donkey Kong and Bowser were playable characters in the game prior. As well.
Okay.
So it's totally fair if you don't think that should be used. I totally get it if you feel like Skylanders is giving him something he shouldn't have. That's totally valid. And I do think it is slightly different than scaling Donkey Kong to the rest of the Mario cast because that's more established. And of course, Skylanders is not the main Crash Bandicoot universe or canon. But I think it's fair to use in this regard. And it is definitely the most powerful Crash could possibly get.
I don't think. Oh, sorry.
And there is plenty of evidence of universal in Skylanders before you really squint your eyes. There's plenty of evidence of that. And Skylanders Spyro is absolutely more powerful than Legends or Classic.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mario.
I definitely think I don't think the supercharger. If you were to use Skylanders, I think the superchargers are definitely a bit more powerful because they were able to defeat. Oh, I'm forgetting his name. The final boss of Superchargers said he was gonna Emperor Chaos. No wait.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure he said that he was able to threaten the entire, like, basically all the universes because he was going to affect not only the Skylanders one, but in the tie-in comic for that IDW made, they said that it could also threaten the Mario universe as well. So I totally feel like that, and you can battle him as Donkey Kong in that game with his vehicle. So
yes, you can. And you can defeat Imaginator's Chaos, so I forget the name of it. But you can defeat Imaginator's Chaos as Crash Bandicoot and as Neo Cortex in Imaginators. And Imaginators introduced the gimmick, because every game had to have a gimmick, of creating your own Skylander and elements. And Chaos used that power to create his own superpowered form. And I'd have to look at if one is arguably stronger than the other. But Chaos in general has always been around a universal threat. So at worst case scenario, I feel like they'd even out. But Crash would still have the ability to revive himself 5 times. Even if DK is stronger, he's got to keep killing Crash until he finally stays dead, while Crash is continuing to wear him down. Because I don't really think Crash has any... I don't know if DK really has ways of healing himself. Does he?
Actually, I wanted to bring that up real quick, because the Power Stars in Mario 64 DS are shown that once you gather them, have been shown that they can restore your health. So it's totally possible that they can restore your health.
Okay.
Which could keep DK fighting for a much longer time, and I don't think could wear out Crash's arsenal and the extra lives. Because realistically, he would only need 1 hit to really take out one of Crash's life. So really, maybe at minimum 8. If you have to, or 7 if you include Aku Aku's 2 protections and then the 5 lives Crash has.
Fair enough. Alfie in the chat with
balloons can Donkey Kong have?
Yeah, I was gonna say, don't green balloons kind of fall under that rule of we don't really use 1-up systems on Death Battle?
Yeah, they don't really use like the 1-ups in Death Battle. And I also wanted to bring that up because which I don't think they would use Skylanders in a death knell, because if they were, I feel like they would have used like that for scaling for Bowser in his last episode. They didn't really bring up Skylanders for Bowser, so I don't think Skylanders would work for DK or Crash.
Well, I think Bowser is way stronger than Skylanders, to be honest. I bring it up more for Crash's sake, but I do think Bowser is much more powerful than Skylanders. And they did show it in the All Right, the Combatants Are Set.
Yeah.
We did briefly see Hammer slam Bowser. So they recognized it, but it wasn't really a factor for him. But no, with the lives, and that I bring up the 5 lives thing in Skylanders because Skylanders does not have lives. It's your character dies once, they're out for the entire level, because it's a gimmick for characters to buy more toys. But the 5 lives system is an exclusive power for Crash. And I feel like that's different than just saying they keep pulling out balloons and 1-ups and using them.
Okay. So was that your final argument?
There's one last thing that you forgot to bring up, Mario Master. There's one thing that Donkey Kong could do that Crash has no way of arguing against. I'd shower you with coconut.
No.
I've banished him from the realm, and we are now.
Dang.
Honestly,
Donkey Kong
solid argument.
Yeah, with Donkey Kong appears like, that's not funny, didn't laugh. The meme's like, not funny, didn't laugh.
Okay.
How dare you speak
I
as
said the other-
Audience counsel?
I said the other day in the chat, I literally said, oh no, I just realized a serious win con DK has, and that was the whole thing, because I had to bring that up.
I feel like you're gonna lose votes because of that more than anything else.
Okay, one, to be fair, his singing voice in that show is legitimately great. He's the only person who can sing. And 2, it's really damn funny. And 3, you know for a fact if he actually like started throwing coconut pies at Crash, he'd just start eating them. Like that would totally be a thing they do.
That logic is sound, but the song is still bad.
Actually,
the song is terrible. He just sings it
for
well.
K. Rool also has a good voice, because I remember they did like a fan animation, like have you seen like Return to Crocodile Island? That was amazing.
Oh,
that was,
that's great.
amazing
I love that.
Okay.
I think
and
that's
also-
the final. Well, you're Columbo. What else is there to bring up?
No, it's just that because they use the show, technically, DK could literally just say, look, it's the crystal coconut. It's like the Cosmic Cube. It does damn anything the plot wants it to. You're dead now. And Crash suddenly dies because of how terrible that show is. It's
Okay.
worth bringing up. He could totally just use that.
I think we've had more than enough time on Crash. DK, do you have like any final arguments for DK before we get to the voting?
I think Donkey Kong is just way more powerful than Crash. He's much smart. He's faster, stronger, more durable. He should be able to overwhelm Crash before he can use any of his more wacky things.
Okay. I think we can get to the voting now. We'll start with Smelt. Who are you leaning towards right now?
I think I'm gonna have to side with Donkey Kong. The Skylanders argument does make me think that you could genuinely argue roughly equal stats, but Mario power-ups are just so BS that I think they can counter most of what Crash has. Like, the Gold Flower especially feels like something that would just wipe out hordes of Crash clones.
Alright. Kino, do you have any thoughts on who wins? And you because you have a jury?
I came into this really thinking this was a wash for DK. And I do want to say, like, I think Paul has made some pretty good points.
That's not usually great for Paul when that's the first part of the argument.
I learned a lot about Crash that I really didn't know. But I think with, like Smelt says, I think DK just has too much raw power that I feel like even with the layers of invincibility, I feel like DK is probably still going to just one-shot him when he does get a chance to land a hit. So I'm going to go DK.
I feel that. For me, I kind of think it's a similar thing. If you consider Mario scaling, I feel like Skylander scaling is also on the table because I feel like they cross over with those franchises similarly enough, but are also separate similarly enough. if we just use Crash's stuff and DK's stuff, I feel like DK almost always has somewhat of a strength and durability advantage to the point where in the early parts of the brawl, like, basically all of Crash's arsenal is gonna not do a ton to DK, whereas DK stuff will be, like, nearly a one-shot. But if he does have 5 lives to work through, then I could see maybe, like, he tries to, like, catch him off with, like, the gravity or the time. And if we argue Skylanders, we could say they're comparable. I think I'm gonna give it to Crash, because I think if we give the Mario scaling to DK, we have to give the Skylanders to Crash, which would give equal-ish stats. In which case, I actually think Crash has better tools and better intelligence to take the win. Jobber, what do you think?
I kind of have a similar sentiment to you. Well, when it comes to just if we give like Donkey Kong the Mario scaling, I think it's fine and a little bit fair to give Crash his Skylander scaling. At least he has some base. This Crash has like some basis behind it. Like okay, we could just give this to him. There's a good reason, right? And then they become equal stat scenario, and even if well, at least strength wise, but let's say the speed's still like uneven. It's like well. Crash does have his invincibilities, and he can just keep coming back. Like I forgot the number of times like he dies.
5.
Like 5. He can come back like 5 times. Like that's 5 tries he has on being able to land. Let's say like a significant blow on DK or like any of his other crazier hacks on him. Like he has 5 chances. While meanwhile DK really only like he has to. You basically essentially kill Crash 5 times before any of these things land on him. I don't think that's particularly gonna happen, especially with how silly and goofy these characters are. Maybe it could even accidentally happen, right? Or some goofy, crazy situations that Crash would conjure up because everyone knows Crash is a character, right? Somehow he's gonna pull it off, whether like on purpose or just accidentally. Did just how he is, So yeah, I think I put my vote for Crash.
All right.
So we're 2-2 right now. I will finish the chat poll and see where we're landing. And with 64%, is a Donkey Kong victory with the third vote.
Ooh.
Hey,
It's
close.
close.
got close
It's
to my
Sorry
close.
for DK or Crash. You go. Good job for Crash.
Oh, absolutely. Well done to you too. That got way closer than I expected.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I think a lot of your points are very good for the most part. I do agree on a lot of your points, but this one is it goes from being like it feels close to God, it doesn't feel close at all to wow, this is really more debatable than you might think. And
Yeah,
that's
I
part of why I
definitely
really
think
like it.
Yeah.
This cast was really cool. It has gone on longer than I thought, and some of us have some stuff to do. But do you want to take just like 2-3 minutes, Mario, and say like why you think this matchup is so cool since you're pitching it?
Okay, I really love this matchup because both characters are very endearing to my heart. I love both Donkey Kong and Crash, and I really think both characters deserve a run back. Honestly, this may be like something that maybe a little bit weird to say, but I think both have very good options for run backs. Crash, I know he has DK, but I also seen some people like Rayman and rematch with Spyro for him. And then for DK, I've seen people like Toriko or King Kong for him. Like, I think both have very solid options for returning fights. And honestly, what I really want in my pitch is just to convince them to bring these characters back.
Okay.
And
So
I
it's
definitely
not
love
even this matchup specifically. It's just you love both of them and would love them to get some more time and to shine.
Yeah. And
Okay.
well, this is definitely my favorite idea for both. I would not be mad if they decide to go with Toriko or Rayman. Because
Okay.
I also see this fight as being more cartoony, like similar in vein to Smokey versus McGruff or Scooby versus Courage, where it can have very comedic moments in it.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone, for watching this video. We are happy to have shown off another matchup. We do have to get going, but thanks for watching, and we hope to see you on the next one. Oh,
Wait,
one more thing.
ending sound.
Oh, one more thing.
Whoa!
Whoa! And one more thing
Whoa!
for the ending. And in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. There we
See y'all
go.
soon. I'll be